It's a pleasure to be with you again today. My name is Jason Dexter, and today we are continuing our study of the book of Revelation. And we've come to Revelation chapter 18. Now, when we study the book of Revelation, it's easy to feel it's a bit alien and foreign to us. After all, it's a vision of the future. So how does the future affect our present? Now, imagine for a minute that before you get married, God would show you a sign marked either successful or unsuccessful. That sign would show if your marriage will be good or not. Would you want to see this sign? And if the sign said unsuccessful, would that affect your decision? Now, the book of Revelation is a lot like this. It shows that people are on one of two paths. And then it shows us the final destination of those paths. So basically, Revelation says you can go this way or you can go that way. And this is where those two roads lead. So you can choose now, today, which road you will go on. The book of Revelation reminds us of the destination of those paths that we choose. Now, some might ask if Revelation is practical. And I would say it's extremely practical because when you know where these different paths are heading, you can make a wise decision to choose the right way today. So today we're going to look at Revelation chapter 18, and we're going to see two different ways we can go in our life, two distinct paths. So we need to make sure that we choose the right one. So let's go ahead and read. I'm going to read this passage in pieces. So the first part is in verses 1 through 2. After this, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was made bright with his glory. And he called out with a mighty voice, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She's become a dwelling place for demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird, a haunt for every unclean and detestable beast." Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. That is the key message of chapter 18. This road, this system, this is where it leads. It leads to fallenness. So this chapter is about the fall of Babylon the Great. Now, to fully understand the significance of this, we need to go back and trace the history of this city and its meaning in the Bible. Now, where did Babylon start? It was started by a man named Nimrod in Genesis 10:8. Cush fathered Nimrod. He was the first on earth to be a mighty man. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore, it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. Now, the name Nimrod means let us revolt or let us rebel. And the city lived up to its founder's name. So the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Babel, and then these several other cities. Now, God had commanded in Genesis 1:28 the people to be fruitful and to multiply and to fill the earth. But the people of Babel had a different idea. Genesis 11:4, then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth." So God said, be fruitful, multiply, spread out. And they said, we absolutely don't want to do that. We will not spread out over the earth. We want instead to do the opposite. We want to gather together. And so they said, this is what we are going to do. We're going to build a tower, and together we're going to unite under one banner of mankind, making a statement that we will not submit to God. They would do things their own way. They were independent. Man was boss, not God. This is actually the first attempt to set up a one-world government. They built a tower, probably a ziggurat, in defiance of worshiping God and setting up false religion. Thus, Babylon represents the world system that sets itself up in opposition to God. So what is Babylon? Babylon is a system which includes man's religious, political, and economic self-will. Political, religious, and economic self-will. Now, Babylon, the religion, was dealt with in Revelation 17. In Babylon, the political and economic entity is dealt with here in Revelation chapter 18. So Babylon is wicked, and it is filled with demons and the influence of demons. It says it's the dwelling place for demons. Babylon is mentioned 260 times in the Bible. From the beginning, it has opposed God. It was also the empire which first came and conquered Jerusalem, taking its inhabitants and its exiles away from the promised land. So here in Revelation 18, we see the climax between these two systems, between God's system and Satan's system. Throughout the whole Bible and all of human history, Satan has been trying to use the world system to entice people to join his kingdom with the enticement of wealth and power and sex. So we see three things about Babylon historically. One, it begins as the place of man's rebellion through united world effort, which God judged by the confusion of languages. Two, it's the instrument that seeks to take away the land promised by God to his people, the Israelites. And three, it's a worldly system of politics and economics and religion, which is influenced by Satan and sets itself up against God. His goal being to lure people away from the Lord and from his design for them. So this is a little bit of the background about Babylon. Let's go forward and read about the allure of Babylon. From verses 3 through 16. For all nations have drunk the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality, and the kings of the earth have committed immorality with her. The merchants of the earth have grown rich from the power of her luxurious living. Then I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins, lest you share in her plagues, for her sins are heaped high as heaven. And God has remembered her iniquities. Pay her back as she herself has paid back others, and repay her double for her deeds. Mix a double portion for her in the cup she mixed. As she glorified herself and lived in luxury, so give her a like measure of torment and mourning. Since in her heart she says, I sit as a queen, I am no widow, and mourning I shall never see. For this reason her plagues will come in a single day, death and mourning and famine, and she will be burned up with fire. For mighty is the Lord God who has judged her. And the kings of the earth who committed sexual immorality and lived in luxury with her will weep and wail over her when they see the smoke of her burning. They will stand far off in fear of her torment and say, Alas, alas, you great city, you mighty city Babylon, for in a single hour your judgment has come. And the merchants of the earth weep and mourn for her, since no one buys their cargo anymore. Cargo of gold, silver, jewels, pearls, fine linen, purple cloth, silk, scarlet cloth, all kinds of scented wood, all kinds of articles of ivory, all kinds of articles of costly wood, bronze, iron, and marble, cinnamon, spice, incense, myrrh, frankincense, wine, oil, fine flour, wheat, cattle, and sheep, horses and chariots and slaves, that is, human souls. The fruit for which your soul longed has gone from you. And all your delicacies and your splendors are lost to you, never to be found again. The merchants of these wares who gain wealth from her will stand far off, in fear of her torment, weeping and mourning aloud. Alas, alas, for the great city that was clothed in fine linen, in purple and scarlet, adorned with gold, with jewels, and with pearls. For in a single hour all this wealth has been laid waste. Okay, so this is talking about the allure of Babylon. Now, we are not yet in a time when this final version of Babylon has been revealed, but Satan is nonetheless active in this world. He's not just sitting around waiting for his end to come. He and his demons are seeking to lure, seduce, tempt people away from God. They target the church. They target the family. They target children. They target students. They use every tool at their disposal, especially the world system around us. Now, how does the world seek to lure us away from God? And in this chapter, we see 4 key temptations used by Babylon, by the world, to lure people away from God. The first is wealth. The word wealth or riches appears 5 times in this passage, and we also see it in verse 3. It says that the merchants of the earth have grown rich from the power of her luxurious living. So here are a few questions you can think about to evaluate your own attitude toward money. Do you spend a lot of time thinking about money? Do you spend much time talking about money? How often do you check your investments or your bank accounts? And perhaps most importantly, are you willing to sin to get money? Now, many people give their lives to the pursuit of making money. This is not the way. God has not called us to pursue worldly riches. Instead, let us pursue His kingdom. Let us use the resources He's given us for building up His kingdom. Now, a second temptation or lure is immorality. We also see that in verse 3, that the kings of the earth have committed immorality with her. One of the things Satan offers is immorality. Now, of course, Satan doesn't say it's immorality. He doesn't call it that. He calls it pleasure, innocent fun, thrill, romance, happiness, whatever. It's free sex with no consequences, supposedly. Now, from Old Testament times, many false religions were built upon immorality. Many temples filled with temple prostitutes, where sexual immorality was an integral aspect of worshiping that deity. That hasn't changed today. Modern day movies and TV shows are increasingly filled with immorality, and access to pornography is far more widespread than ever before. Make no mistake, these kinds of things were always done, but what before was done in the secret, in the dark, is now being done more and more in the open, brazenly. Through media, the allure of immorality can be broadcast straight into the home. Now, in Revelation, we see that the world has mostly bought what Satan's selling. They don't just dabble in it a little bit. They don't just do it secretly and try to hide it. It says that they have become drunk, intoxicated with sexual immorality. They do it publicly without any shame, celebrating it, promoting it. It's running rampant in the world. And we see that happening. We see the world running quickly into this kind of rampant evil. Now, people are not content just to do it themselves. Now they also want to praise and exalt others who engage in the same immoral behavior. They glorify it and attack anyone who points out their sin. Now, in the end times, people will embrace the government and leaders who support and even celebrate their sin. This is not the way. God places certain boundaries on us for our good. So let us dedicate ourselves to purity and faithfulness. What else does Babylon offer? Verse 7, it says she glorified herself and lived in luxury. So she offers luxury. Also, verse 16 talks about the clothing of fine linen, the purple, the scarlet, the gold, the jewels, the pearls, the wealth of luxurious living. Merchants who do business with her reap great wealth. And this wealth is not used to help others. There is no thought of frugality or generosity. People make money because they want to spend it on lavish living. Now, in such a world with no restraint, the more grandiose and absurd the purchase, the better. Vain people will attempt to compete with each other for new ludicrous ways to spend money. Now, I've seen absurd scribbles of art that look like a 2-year-old could have drawn them. Literally just total scribbles on a piece of paper. I did actually a survey. I put out 2 different paintings that were just scribbles and asked which one was done by a toddler and which one was done by a famous and wealthy and supposedly expert artist. And the people I asked could not tell the difference, and some of them got the answer wrong. Some of these so-called art pieces were literally scribbled circles on a black chalkboard, sold for $70 million. Why do people spend money like this? I believe the answer is vanity. What better way to prove how rich you are than the ability to waste a large amount? It's almost like two rich guys get together and they're arguing about who is more wealthy. And to prove that they're wealthy, one of them takes out like $1,000 from his wallet and just sets it on fire. And he's like, I'm so wealthy that just burning $1,000 makes no difference to me at all. And the other one says, that's nothing. And he brings out a pile of $50 million and then he burns it and says, see how rich I am? I can burn $50 million and it's nothing for me. That's what people are doing. They are zealously pursuing lavish lifestyles. They don't care how much money is wasted. It brings them pleasure. There's a sultan in Brunei, for example, who owns over 5,000 luxury cars valued at $2.3 trillion. Others buy yachts, mansions, fancy clothes. People wear wildly expensive jewelry or shirts or clothes or anything from these very expensive brands to show off how wealthy they are. Now, it's not only the rich who seek luxury. People with less money face the same trap of always wanting more. This is not the way. This is not the way. God does not call us to pursue a lavish lifestyle. I was talking with a friend last week, and we were talking about, is it ever acceptable to purchase, for example, a luxury? Like, let's say, a Ferrari or a Mustang. Is it acceptable to do it? We don't want to put limits or extra rules on the Bible. But we agreed that these things are a luxury and that in almost 100% of cases, there's a much better way of using money. So it's not about how rich you are. Having a ton of money also doesn't give you the right to waste it. Perhaps God is giving you more money, more resources so that you can use those resources for building his kingdom. Now, I'm not arguing that we should be like a monk and deny buying ourselves any kind of useful thing which we need in order to practice a kind of man-made religion of denial. I'm not saying that, but there is a balance. And God doesn't call us to waste the resources that he has given to us. Let's use them for his glory. Now, another area of this, another lure, the fourth one we see in this passage, which Satan uses to tempt people to his side, is culture and entertainment. Verse 22, the sound of harpists and musicians, of flute players and trumpeters will be heard in you no more. A craftsman of any craft will be found in you no more. So another way the worldly system comes against God is through culture. Think about how many cultural things in history glorify sin. Gladiators back in Roman days. How about now? Things like UFC fighting. Would Jesus support that? Drunkenness. Drinking is a part of many cultures. People say, oh, this is my culture to get drunk. Yes, it's culture. Culture is fallen. Certain kinds of art. Many artists paint and display nudity. And it's all for appreciating the human body, they say. And yet God commands modesty, and he himself clothed Adam and Eve. Why are so many statues and art pieces of naked people? It's culture. It's art, people say. Yes, culture is fallen, and art comes out of man's fallen minds. Music, there's many, many types of music which dishonor God. There's many films which glorify sin, which glorify grotesque violence or drugs or sex. But it's art, they say. Yes, it's a corrupted form of art from a corrupted system that is against God. Now, many sinful practices are excused by saying it's culture or it's art. Culture is fallen and depraved. Now, God does not call us to follow the culture around us. He calls us to redeem it. We can redeem music and use it to honor God. We can redeem films and use them to share the good news. There's even a site which is called Redeem TV and others like Revelation Media. Many good media companies today, Christian companies with family-friendly, God-honoring entertainment. I've seen movies like Courageous and Flywheel and the other one produced by also that same company, Fireproof. And also others like Torchlighters for kids. There's many good good Christian movies and media for us to consume. We can redeem art. We can redeem culture. You can use your artistic gift to glorify God. You can redeem sports. You can use them as an outreach tool. So rather than blindly just joining culture around us, let's consider how to redeem it for serving God. Now, the last part we're going to look at is the destruction of Babylon in verses 17 through 24. It says, "For in a single hour all this wealth has been laid waste, and all shipmasters and seafaring men, sailors, and all whose trade is on the sea, stood far off and cried out, as they saw the smoke of her burning. What city was like the great city? And they threw dust on their heads as they wept and mourned, crying out, Alas, alas, for the great city, where all who had ships at sea grew rich by her wealth. For in a single hour she has been laid waste. Rejoice over her, O heaven, and you, saints and apostles and prophets, for God has given judgment for you against her. Then a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea, saying, So will Babylon the great city be thrown down with violence, will be found no more. And the sound of harpists and musicians, of flute players and trumpeters, will be heard in you no more. And a craftsman of any craft will be found in you no more. And the sound of the mill will be heard in you no more. And the light of a lamp will shine in you no more. And the voice of bridegroom and bride will be heard in you no more. For your merchants were the great ones of the earth, and all the nations were deceived by your sorcery. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints, and of all who have been slain on earth." So here we see the destruction of Babylon. The capital of this economic, commercial, and political system which sets itself up against God is going to be destroyed. When it happens, it will be quick, in a single day, in a single hour. God is going to destroy it, burning it up with fire. The ramifications of this will be seen across the globe. Its political allies will weep and mourn. Its merchant partners will wail in despair. Supply chains across the world will be broken. Ships and cargo will be stranded with no buyers. Businesses will be wrecked. You don't have to use very much imagination to understand how this will affect the global economy. In 2008, when just one important financial firm in the U.S. went bankrupt, the Lehman Brothers, the stock market crashed. Around the world, as every major stock market opened, one by one, they crashed. Boom. Not just on Wall Street. Sydney, Tokyo, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Mumbai, Dubai, Berlin, London. In a single day, every single one of them crashed. Every person linked to this economy felt its effects. Now, on that day of reckoning for Babylon, the pain will be far worse. Every person who is connected to that evil system will feel it. The wailing and the despair show how much they hope and rely on it for their safety and security. They chose the wrong way. Remember the beginning of this sharing, I said there are two ways you can choose. And God is going to tell you where these two paths lead. This path, the world's way, Babylon's way, leads to destruction. God's word says you reap what you sow. They chose sin, pleasure, wealth, luxury, culture, art, all the things that can satisfy their human desires. In this chapter, we see that they will pay the price. What lesson can we learn from that? 1 John 2:16 and 17 says, For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires. But whoever does the will of God abides forever. Look around you for just a moment. Wherever you are, whether you're in your home, in a car, on the metro, just look around you and see what you can see. What of the things which you can see right now are going to last? Which of the things you can see right now are going to last? The answer is nothing. Nothing that you can see right now is eternal. Now, the only thing that will last around you is the souls of the people next to you. That's what God's kingdom is made up of. So, where should you invest? Should you invest in the Babylonian stock market, in Babylonian culture and art and all of these things? We should invest in God's kingdom. The whole of Revelation in chapter 18 show us this epic battle between God and Satan, good and evil, the narrow road and the broad road. Here again, we see that God wins. Now imagine for a moment you're a gambler. I know you're a good Christian. You would never do that. But just imagine you're a gambler. And someone comes to you and can tell you in crystal clear detail how the match will go and who will win. Is that gambler going to bet on the losing side? Of course not. That would be insanity. Likewise, it is insane to gamble your soul and bet on this world system, which is going to lose. We have seen the end of this path. The end is destruction. The angel says, fallen, fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. Now, when a person looks at Babylon, what the world offers, a person might see beauty, pleasure, riches, power, opportunity, fun, success. What God sees, a dwelling place for demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird, her sins heaped as high as the heavens. This is what God sees. When God looks at the world's corrupted system, that's what he sees. And because he sees the truth about this world, he gives a clear command to his believers. What does God want us to do? What does God want you to do from this passage today? This is what he says, verse 4. I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins, lest you share in her plagues." Come out. God's point is clear. God's people must not ally themselves with Babylon. From this, we can find our main application for today. There are two ways. Choose the right one. Acts 24:14 calls our faith a way. But this I confess to you, that according to the way, which they call a sect, I worship the God of our fathers. Now, in New Testament times, the Christian faith was called the way. It was called this because believers lived their life a different way from those in the world. Their faith affected how they lived. The way they treated their families was different. The way they treated their customers and their employees and their employers was different. And most importantly, the way they followed the true God through Jesus was different. They followed the true way which God set before them. So in this passage, we see a clear contrast. We see two ways. We can follow the crowd and live like the world, or we can be different. Now on this, Paul also talked about it in 2 Corinthians 6:14. He says, "Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. What partnership has righteousness with lawlessness? What fellowship has light with darkness? What accord has Christ with Belial? What portion does an unbeliever share with a believer? What agreement has the temple of God with idols? For we are the temple of the living God, as God said, I will make my dwelling among them and walk among them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Therefore go out from their midst and be separate from them, says the Lord. Touch no unclean thing, then I will welcome you. I will be a father to you. You shall be sons and daughters to me, says the Lord Almighty." Here we see 5 contrasts of God's way and the world's way. We see righteous versus lawlessness. We see light versus darkness. We see Christ versus Belial or Satan. We see a believer and an unbeliever. And we see the temple of God and idols. 5 different contrasts. God commands, do not be unequally yoked. Go out, be separate, touch no unclean thing. God takes this idea of being separate and distinct very, very seriously. In the Old Testament, the Jews were to be very different from others. They could not eat the same foods. do the same things, or even wear the same clothing. They were almost forced to be separate. And in the New Testament, the church is called to the Great Commission. We've all heard the phrase, be in the world, but not of the world. You don't have to become a monk in Inner Mongolia and confine yourself to a monastery. But neither do you need to join in doing things the way the world does and say, I am being in the world. We are to be in the world, but we are to be different. We are to be salt and light. Jesus said that when the salt loses its flavor, it is no good anymore. We are called to maintain our distinctiveness. The light of Christ through us is to penetrate the world in this dark hour. So we are not to align ourselves with the world's way. In a very real way, the Holy Spirit through us, through the church, is holding back the tide of evil in this world. And without the light from believers speaking the truth, the world will quickly spiral into more and more insane sin. So, are you joining the world or are you redeeming it? Which one of these two paths are you walking on? Here in Corinthians, Paul commands believers, do not be yoked together with an unbeliever. We also are not to be yoked together with Babylon, the corrupt world system which thumbs its nose at God. What are some practical applications? What are some ways you can apply this and make sure you don't go the way of the world? Well, here are just a few, but first, don't marry an unbeliever. There's nothing that allies you so closely to the world system than marriage. If you're a believer, marry another believer. Also consider where to send your kids to school. Would you send your kids to Nimrod Babel High? If not, should you send your child to a school that's run by the same worldly system today? Now, it may be that your child can go to Babylon University like Daniel did, share the gospel and be salt and light. If that's what God is calling you to do, okay, but be very, very sure and be very, very clear of the risks. You must prepare them first. Are your children prepared to face immense pressure to conform to the system schools? Use your money to invest in God's kingdom, not to buy luxury goods which you don't need. Think of ways to redeem the culture around you. In finishing, I want to read this verse, which I think summarizes very well the lesson we can learn for today. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasure in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Remember, there are two paths you can join, the world's way or God's way. The decisions which you make today, right now, make a difference in your eternal destiny. If you choose God's way, you'll be on the winning side, the winning team. If you choose the world's way, the broad way, the end is destruction. But the choice is yours. I hope this lesson in Revelation 18 was encouraging and motivating for you. I would invite you to join us again next time as we continue our study in Revelation 19, as we seek to take these very complex ideas in the book of Revelation and understand them, and then learn how can we apply these to our lives, how can we obey these principles today in the 21st century. May God bless you and see you next time.